The International School of Choueifat started against mainstream. It started in 1886, teaching young ladies when men barely went to school. Can you tell us something about this and the rest?
You see, if you can call it temerity, it probably runs in the DNA of the family that started it. And I would like to add here a small bracket thing. I am here, I represent a group. I am the oldest and the longest serving. There is no other extremely important for everybody to understand. I represent a group, Mme Leila Saad. My father-in-law, at the end of the 19th century, was convinced that any reform in any country, if you want to serve a country, you start at the grassroots, and grassroots are education. He went against a lot of odds, we're not going to enumerate them now, but he started by teaching girls, insisting on women, because he felt that the woman was the backbone of the home. The education of the woman is reflected in the whole family. In a village that was very conservative and where parents did not dare send their girls to school, but he took off. I have to say that boys soon came in and pushed away some of the girls, but that's another story. Anyway, they started and they succeeded. And this desire was part of the family. The whole family helped when there was need for that. And then when my father passed away, his son, Charles Saad, my late husband, took over. And then when we got married, I was first slightly interested and then became more interested. And I realized why they valued education so much. And I felt there was a part to play, and I loved that. After the Second World War, Charlie wanted to really revitalize the school. He had brilliant futuristic thoughts, and he knew that the world was changing, and he surrounded himself with young people with vision and ambition. The first one of that group that joined this institution was Ralph Bustani, who, by the way, is still here and is co-founder of what happened later. And he's still the intellectual architect behind our growth. And we are very proud to have him and that he's still contributing, irrespective of age. Of course, when I speak, you realize that age has never stopped any of us from working, because there is the age that is the physical age and the age that is the age of the mind.
This is sad. I know that you don't mind stating how young and beautiful you are. And I would like our audience to share this with our audience. This is sad is 9 decades past. I will not specify how much.
No, go ahead, 94.
Mrs. Saad is 94 years old, and she works every day.
Yeah, I love it. Anyway, we loved the school. The young group that joined us, that was recruited by us, were dynamic, enthusiastic, and they caught the fever. It was a passion that was in the air. And then, unfortunately, the mid-70s hit, and we could see that actually the men in this family saw that, and the men in the Saad family, in the SABIS family saw that. So Charlie and Ralph often teamed up against me. They wanted to grow. I was more conservative, and of course, I accepted the view later. For survival in Lebanon, we had to have the strength, financial and otherwise, to continue when things were better. We didn't want to think that this was the end. Definitely not. We loved the country and but we were doing too much. So that's when we decided to go abroad.
So if we resume in the 70s, when the Lebanese war started,
Yes.
International School of Choueifat at that time, which is SABIS today,
Yes.
already had the intention of growth. And
Yes,
so
yes.
foresaw things and the situation in Lebanon, and Mr. Charles Saad and Mr. Al-Bistani decided to explore other territories.
Exactly.
You were the conservative person.
I was a conservative, but I didn't see the need. I mean, we were flourishing, we were doing very well. So, but they had a desire to spread. And in 75, the desire became a need for survival. So we all saw that, and that's when we started.
And you did not start in an easy market. The first market that you explored after Lebanon was the UAE and the Emirate of Sharjah.
Exactly. And the conditions were very needed to be advanced. There was a difference. Lebanon was at the time way ahead. And we went there and faced many difficulties, logistics and otherwise. But we were determined. And here I want to just check out to say to people, whether you can do something or cannot depends on your frame of mind, not on the facilities in which you are surrounded. We started in an old, dilapidated camp, military camp. I don't want to describe it, but it was not the Ritz. But we were determined.
The Ritz is not as beautiful as it seems. A few years ago, the world had a very negative experience of the Ritz. I hope it will happen in Lebanon.
And anyway, we started there, and some fell all the way. Some couldn't take the difficulties, but that was not because of difficulties, because they didn't have the frame of mind of determination. If you love something and are determined, difficulties become, to quote somebody, stepping stones to success. Because if it was easy, it can be worth doing. If it's worth doing, it's usually very difficult. And we went ahead. And anyway, the rest is history. We went to Europe after that.
You went to Europe. I noted collaboration work, teamwork, passion for growth and determination, and the need, especially.
Yeah.
In 1982 or in the early 80s, when the war was at its hardest in Lebanon, your baby, your mother's school, your home was being looted by the thugs of war.
Yeah.
And you were focusing on development and growth.
Yeah.
You relocated temporarily into a shy building in Beirut and explored Europe, which is another continent and something very different. A lot of courage is needed.
Besides the war, I had lost Charlie during that period. And in 1981, on top of everything else, I had to cope with the difficulties of life that being widowed can bring. And we stayed in Choueifat for 2 years. But I always felt that I was entrusted with something that I had to keep at any price. So I took the reluctant move to go to Beirut and lived in premises that I cannot call our school, but it was important for the school to survive, no matter what. Again, I said, the spirit, not the stones, will make it. We went for what was supposed to be 3 months. We rented a place for 3 months. We stayed there for 9 years until 1991, 92. And then we were growing. Our first venture into Europe was in 1983, in the summer of 83, in England, in a place near Bath, a beautiful area. And 2 years later, when we celebrated our centenary, we had 6 schools, one in England, we had 3 in the Emirates, besides Mother School, one in England and one in the United States. We had just started the first school in the United States. And that was beautiful, but it broke my heart to celebrate our centenary in England, not in Lebanon.